Hey everyone, how's it going? As of late, I've been gearing towards expanding beyond the scope of just gaming, and while it's a subject that I'll always cover, I don't want it to be the only subject that I cover anymore, which is why you'll sometimes see videos of varying subjects that interest me. In saying that though, I do have a racing game that was sent to me by email, and it's one that nests itself within a period of arcade racing where it was simple and straight to the point. And that game is Sunrise GP. Sunrise GP is an old school arcade racing game that combines retro cars, bosozoku car tuning, cel-shaded graphics with a nice and chill atmosphere and simple but fun handling of the cars. It's one of several indie racing games that have gone unnoticed in a community that has become jaded and somewhat unhappy in the current state of arcade racing. You'll find plenty of indie races, but not a lot when it comes to the AAA side. Sunrise GP as a game though is one that'll take you back to the past, and at the same time give you the benefits of modern controls and modern physics. I didn't play this game for very long, but by the time I was done, I had completed most of the content that is available, so for those that are expecting a rich and long-term indie racing experience, look elsewhere. In any event, I'm going to start digging into the game and see what's inside its cel-shaded corpse. Now to start off, there is no story, no setting to speak of in this game. The developers didn't want to stress and didn't care too much about creating a compelling narrative with characters to know and care about, so for those looking for that, move on. Some people in the racing community want that sort of thing, but for others, the driving and the handling and the racing experience is really all that matters to them, and that's what this game is designed for. You pick your car of choice, you select a track, and then you just start racing, which is arcade racing at its purest and simplest form. Your three main modes that the game has to offer is Grand Prix, Challenge, and Quick Race. Grand Prix is where you'll be unlocking all the available cars as well as earning currency to unlock parts, earning stars to net more currency in each race. There are 20 races in total and they don't take very long to do either. Then you have Challenge mode where you're given a preset car, a time requirement, and a track to race on where it's just you. Then you have Quick Race where you set the number of laps, cars, as well as picking an alternative race mode called Last Man Standing where the opponent that comes last in a lap gets taken out of the race. But for your first time playthrough, your main focus will be on the Grand Prix mode. The car selection here is pretty neat, with 21 cars to pick from and they all comprise of old school European models. But there is also a Japanese element added into the mix, and that is to do with the customization itself. You have 17 different areas of the car that you can modify, but the most significant ones will be the body kits, because these body parts resemble the type of cars that you see in the culture known as bosozoku. Now, bosozoku had originated in Japan sometime after the end of World War II, and it didn't necessarily start with cars, but with motorcycles. So, a number of lost souls at this point. We're looking at an uncertain future and we're left being unsure what to do here. However, they would eventually look towards modifying motorcycles and to some extent cars. The Western influences also had an effect on their rebellious attitude, seeking adrenaline in the comforts of their young comrades wearing the same outfits that rocked a modified bike or car. But as time went on, the culture itself would eventually fade out. Its members would grow up and just move on with life, with some remaining in the past, not to mention the crackdowns initiated on the gangs as the police were given more authority to stop their activities. However, the car side of the bosozoku culture still shows up like an anomaly in car events and car meets, low and wide body kits, and exaggerated exhaust pipes reaching for the stars. These sort of things would be integrated into the game Sunrise GP. You can make some ridiculous but nice looking rides for all of the races, and it also has a part in the physics element too, when you crash into them and then send things flying. The annoying part, however, is that you have to rebuy some of the parts for every car. Say if you bought the same rims from, say for another car, on a new one you'll have to buy those same rims again. For more unique parts I can understand this, but for parts that are consistent across the whole selection of cars, I wish there were exceptions to the rule of buying. Moving on. When you start racing, you'll notice a few things already. For starters, the handling here is pretty solid and is easy to control, but seems to be gearing more towards just accelerating all the time, rather than doing anything else. Making precise and sharp turns isn't as important as it is in other games, because a lot of the times, your car picks up speed very quickly even after slowing down when you complete a turn, so most of the time, I never really had to brake unless it was a very sharp turn. Each car has their own statistics in terms of power and top speed, but ultimately it doesn't matter that much because for one, the races will always adjust to the car that you select, making for a fair and fun race, and two, the AI opponents themselves are just terrible. Every race they are in, they frequently crash into each other once the race begins, and as the race progresses, they often struggle on the more complex tracks that have sharper turns as well as obstacles. When you get to first place, you don't have to worry about anything else ever again, and the only reason that you can lose in that position is if you're driving worse than the AI somehow. This eventually led to the game becoming pretty boring and stale towards the final stretch of Grand Prix races, where I just wanted to finish it and move on. Where even if I put it on the hardest difficulty, I still wouldn't have had any issues and would still win. And the only time where I did lose is when I used a car that wasn't exactly suitable for a particular track. And that's another thing too, is the use of cars. While it's great that the game tailors the opponent's selection of cars against yours in a race, it doesn't really matter when you finally have an optimal car that's effective on any of the tracks that you race in. To win, you need to be in the top 3 positions, so coming first doesn't matter at all. Your true goal here is to actually get the best time possible and get as many stars as possible so that you can get at least 1 star if, you don't do too well, which will then at least unlock you the next race in the Grand Prix. Getting 3 stars isn't exactly necessary unless your goal is to get all the achievements, and if it's for parts, well, again, you can just repeat the races and grind out the game's currency, and inevitably you will get the 3 stars anyways. I don't mind games that are designed to be cozy and relaxing. They don't have to be overly complex or extremely difficult, but they need to be at the very least engaging. And at a certain point, this game stops being engaging because of the pathfinding issues with the AI, leaving not a lot of stimulation or challenge in the experience. In saying that, the physics can be fun at times. Ramming into other vehicles to send them flying can be a fun affair, and with some improvements to the AI and the way that they handle the races, I can enjoy more of this stuff. After you finish the game, there's really nothing more to do beyond just doing the challenges, which is just a time trial and quick race where there's no incentive to do it at all unless you have friends to play with for split screen. Outside of the gameplay and the decent handling model, the game's art style is very good. I've always been a fan of cel-shaded graphics because they have this effect of bringing more out of low poly based models, giving them more style overall. Not to mention making it timeless, so even years and years later, this game will still look pleasing to look at. The cel-shaded art style is also supported by the game's vibrant use of colors and the variety of racetracks that it provides. The driving itself is pretty cruisy, and the pleasant atmosphere in the tracks is also a neat way to just clear your head when you need something simpler. Having an option to just do like a free roaming mode in the races would be pretty nice. The music is also good too. A lot of it is outrun based music, which is like a bit faster and a bit more energetic than your usual synthwave stuff. It's the kind of music where you're driving an 80s Lamborghini or a Ferrari on a highway, your mullet and your aviator glasses are glistening in the sunlight, and the rest of the day is just vibes only. That kind of music pretty much. The main menu also has lo-fi hip-hop going on in the background where it's just kind of there and you just ignore it. It's the sort of genre that I often listen to whenever I'm chilling or doing something else and not really paying that much attention to it. It's just mostly noise for me. The outrun music, however, is something that you listen to when you're racing or cruising, but, having fun at the same time or just vibing. After 2 hours of playtime in this game, I was pretty much just done and I wanted to move on. In saying that though, Sunrise GP is a game that is still worth having a look at if you are starved for more arcade racing. It has some neat things going for it, but is ultimately held back by its terrible AI handling in the races that ends up posing no challenge once you're comfortable enough with the handling, not to mention too that the cars all sound the same, which, makes them less unique when you think about it. The studio had a vision for a simple but fun arcade racer, and I think for the most part they've done a decent job, but also have a few steps back on this one. I would like to see some improvements on the handling and also more variation in the car sounds. And if they do a sequel one day, have more variety of race modes beyond just circuit, as well as different types of cars too. Sunrise GP as a game is a neat racer, but don't expect anything more than what it already has on the table. Thanks for watching.